doing extremely well this Friday, the 6th of March. This is a late night show. I haven't done a proper late night show for quite some time, and on a Friday night as well. So it's a proper Friday late night show. So look, it's amazing to be here, and it nearly didn't happen, but I'm glad to say that it has. Nikarutsu is in the house, absolute legend. Sky is in the house as well. Owners literally taking the fans for mugs, and nothing we can do about it. The fans will pay the asking price. That they will, but I'm sheriff now. Remember, I can put a stop to this shit show. So look, guys, get into it tonight. This is a classic late show on here. I do love the late show. One of my favourite shows to do. A Friday night, so there's no work tomorrow for me. So it just means that we can go and we can get into it tonight. The beauty of the late show as well is, look, I'm going to talk about the Glazers again. I'm going to talk about the ticket prices. We can talk about all that stuff as well. But this is your show tonight. You bring in. This is led. You guys can lead the show tonight. We can go whichever way you want to talk about stuff. So bring it all in. Good evening to you as well, Sky. Absolute legend as well. I'm one of the moderators. So be respectful. So to that end. Get into this chat, get into this amazing community best on this platform. Be respectful to the moderators. Be respectful to your shirts. Be respectful to me. Otherwise, the ban hammer comes out, and you will get banned. We don't like to do it. And second thing says, look, I'm not a dictator of this chat. I really do read out your comments and your chats, and we do get into that debate. Goddamn, JB, you got to glow up with that sexy. Well, look, mate. Well, what can I say? What can I say, buddy? It is an amazing shirt. Look, Nikarutsu as complimentary as always, my friend, and is much appreciated. I have to say, and I got that shirt as well. Got that one as well. Again, I'm just trying to get the old school shirts. This shirt, I love this shirt, by the way. I saw this on the website, and I couldn't say no. I mean, what a shirt this is. This is an absolute what a shirt. What a shirt. In all honesty, I do like to show my banning power off, but we've got no problem with that, Sky. Look, you've got the power. With great power comes great responsibility. So go for it. So look, this is the Friday night show. Look, I'm going to come in with season tickets, but I really want your comments tonight. Comments on anything you like, anything you've seen this week. The shirt, this is a beautiful shirt. I do agree with you. The dinosaur is in the house. Dino is in the house. Absolute legend of the channel as well. Yeah, look, guys, let's just appreciate the shirt. I mean, this shirt is just absolute quality. I do have to say this. These shirts are they're just fantastic. So look, Club Retro, if you can get yourself to that site. I mean, I've bought probably about, must be about 10 15 shirts from there now, and yeah, they are fantastic stuff. So look, where do we go tonight? So look, I think the fair place to start, and I think the first place to start tonight is, look, increases in ticket prices. I thought Americans were the only ones who spell ass. They are, yeah, Dino, yeah, they are. I mean, the one thing I love about these shirts as well is that not all of them, like, they're not the same style, or the material will change. So just because I've got this shirt, it's not the same style, it's not the same badges as that shirt or that shirt. These shirts are quality. They're so good. So yeah. Sky says, I'm good, sir. How I'm good, sir. I'm at Wood. Sky's at work. Sky's at work. Legendary. So look, guys, get into your comments and your chats. Fruit of the loot. Oh, bloody hell, Dino. You are going back quite a bit. So look, let's get into this tonight. Like, let's start off with ticket rises. Now look, I fully understand and I appreciate, look, clubs have to from time to time increase the tickets. I get that. Now, what's been bandied around, and look, this goes hand in hand, right, with the Glazer spin. So what they have put out tonight is this. So season tickets are up 5%. So they are announcing ticket increases for the season tickets of around 5% across areas of the club. Now, the fact there that they've mentioned areas of the club, which we all know, there's always an asterisk, there's always a caveat, there's always a small print. Now, Sky does say there, Nico says, how are you still at work at this time of to be honest, I think a lot of fans will complain about the price rises, but they'll still go to say and round every match. And Sky, you know what, Sky, I think you make a good point. You know, and I think this is why ultimately this club can get away with it. Is because, as Sky said there is a waiting list as long as you're on. I think it's something like for every season ticket, I think there's 5 people. But look, you know, I think one of the things I wanted to bring up in regards to that is, look, this 5%, it's not going to be 5%. In some places, it's going to be more. And look, you know, I you know, it's easy for me to sit here, right? I could sit here tonight and not say a word, right? Because, you know, I don't go to the games every single week. There are people who are, you know, look, life is difficult. And the fact that this club has put out tonight, look, there is and Nico says there is a waiting list of 120,000 people. You know, the fact that this club is putting up the prices, and we are talking 5%, but I guarantee you, is going to be a hell of a lot more than that. So, you know, fans tonight, look, this is an attack on fans. I think if you're a match going fan tonight, and look, I always say this, you know, a fan is a fan, but I have to give special mention to the fans go every single game. You know, it's not just the price of a ticket. You know, it's not the fact you've got to pay for that up front. You know, it is the train fare. It is the food. It is the train fare. It is food there. I mean, you're talking X%. You know, you're talking about there's a price rise for, you know, for travel, for food, and on top of that, a club this size, I believe for the money that it makes, I believe for the shit that match going fans have had to put up with this season, the fact that match going fans had to put up with the shit for the previous seasons, I think the very least that they could do for this season is at least keep the tickets the same price. And we know the reason why these ticket prices are increasing. They are increasing because I say the match going fans are having to pay for the Glazers' mistakes. You know, INEOS have, you know, this is why INEOS have been brought into this club, is to do this sort of stuff. You know, in any walk of life, if you go and have something that is inferior, you can go and ask for your money back, right? In the circumstances of this club is despicable. So not only, look, has Sir Jim and have been given the right to sack people, now they are increasing the prices for tickets for match going fans, and also as well, just absolutely just crucifying match going fans for the mistakes of the past. And sadly, you know, the only way, there are only 2 ways out of the situation that I find myself now is, number one is it's going to be, we need to to find somebody who's going to come in to buy the club, or number two is the only way that we're going to be able to survive without the debt is to cut costs and increase the prices of things. This club, and when we're talking about the transfer, so look, I want to know this summer, from this position that we're in, we've seen the Q2 results. We've gone through some of the financial stuff as well. With Danny is in the house, legend, with the increase in the prices. So my question tonight really is this. So Simon says, fans before long won't be able to afford a season ticket. Just pay for tickets when you go to the match. And Simon, you know, if you go back a couple of months, one of the things that was bandied around, Liam says, good evening, Liam, was that United are looking to do I can't remember, it's not as a subscription, but it is what they want to do is they want you to have an American style seat. So you basically have to pay a premium for your seat, and then you basically then pay your ticket on top of that. So it's a very, very Americanized way to do things. And that was banded around at the start of the season. Now, at the moment, that has died a death. And I think that to some people, the 5% is just 5%, right? But it's 5% now, but that doesn't mean to say that's 5% for all seats. Apparently, the 5% is for an area. Now, that's really, really, really important there, because there's always a caveat. There's always something with this club. So I would be interested to see that when the final figure comes out of the actual percentage of what this season tickets increase to, I think you're probably going to find it's more towards the 8 to 10%. And that is, and unfortunately, for those fans, and again, look, give me your opinions. You know, look, you guys, I've said my opinions. You know, Milton says hi, good evening. Is that, look, how do we, if we're not going to get what we want in terms of a sale, how do we realistically fund the sales, knowing we've got the debt, knowing we've got this £780 million? Hi guys, mate, no apologies at all, Milton. Look, this is your Friday night show, so get in your comments tonight. Look, I'm just leading with the tickets. I'm leading with the season tickets. I'm leading with the financial stuff again, because this club always likes to hit people in the pocket. But look, get in there tonight with your comments, your chats, whatever you want to speak about tonight. You know, if you want to go down the transfer route, you know, like for example tonight, Liverpool FA Cup. You know, Liverpool have just seemed to coming into form for us at the wrong time. Simon says, I had to miss the Newcastle match. Yes, it was. It wasn't great. So you know, look, I think we need to come to a realization. Really, is that this is who we are. Liam says, my dad has had the season ticket for years. It's really not fair that the fans are having to show their financial issues caused by the Glazers. Yo, what's up, old man? You sound like the kids, Grace. I'm good. But you know, look, it's always the fans. You know, it's always the taxpayer, right? It's always the taxpayer. It's always the fans. You know, whenever we're talking about, like, we have got the owners who could quite easily fix this. We are dealing with people who have never put a penny of their own money into this club, who will never put a penny of their own cash into this club. So what they are doing is to pay for their mistakes and to fund something else. They are making you they're making us, they're making fans as they do, because the Glazers know. The Glazers have been here for so long. They are masters. They are masters of disguise. They're masters of illusion. They are the masters of spin. They will find a way to spin this. You know, is there any surprise that they put out some Anderson stuff? They put out some of the transfer stuff, and then they kind of sneak in a price rise. You know, this is what they do, and they're doing it now because, you know, they just know that, you know, season tickets are up for renewal, but they're just putting you spin me right round, baby, right round. I love it. I love it. I love it. Who runs INEOS? Walter Mitty. The devil. The devil. The devil. And you're right. Look, this club is just spin. It is just utter spin. And it is, you know, look, tonight again is when you're on the outside looking in on this. As Milton says, very true about the owners who are not putting into the club, and they only take out. But again, you know, this is where I think as a fan base, this is where I think that we almost need to come together and have a collective discussion, right? Because the only way we get the Glazers out is to protest en masse. I still believe 100%. I still believe 100%. If you protest, and I'm talking in the hundreds of thousands, and you get those games called off, the Glazers will start to go. Just for the last, as we had our American owners that were similar, if not worse. They charged the club and moved to come and watch the game. What the fuck, fan? And look, Liverpool again. You know, look, I've got a lot of time for Liverpool, and we all know. I don't understand with this fan base at times. And again, this isn't a dig, right? But Liverpool fans would not stand for this. They chased the owners out of town, right? Why aren't we learning the lessons? No, is it because we're so blinded by the fact that we don't want to do what our rivals do? Is it because we don't have the appetite to do it? It was Hicks and not these ones. Yeah. And Alex Ferguson, MUFC Ukraine Kiev. Hello, my friend. I don't understand. This fan base is in such a mess right now. And look, I never blame fans. You can't blame fans. You can't blame fans. But this is unacceptable. And to some people, you know, look, we are sitting third in the Premier League. And I've been said this, I've heard this. Why am I moaning? Why are Premier League fans moaning? Right? Sorry, why are United fans complaining? You know, we're third in the Premier League. You know, we've won, you know, and again, everything is always focused on the pitch as it should be. But the problem is it's paper thin. Someone says the fan base is in dire straits. Grace says, yeah, stop moaning, you're nearly 70. I do. My heart can't take the flack. Newcastle did us a massive favour on Wednesday. Sorry to mention. No, look. You mentioned, look, this is your show tonight. You get in there. You know, look, I've got no problem. Tonight in discussing the game, because I think a lot of people just want to paper over those cracks. Grace says that I am the show. we don't mess with grace. But look, you know, Wednesday night. Oh God, I'm old. Wednesday night. Look, this is what I mean about papering the cracks. If you look at everything that we do, this club does, is on a level that is just above the surface. So it's a little bit like an iceberg, right? Is that you see the iceberg on top, but you don't see the massive issue that is underneath. Or like all fans see is just this top that's not big, you know. It looks nice, but then underneath you've got this big massive pile of shit, right? So you know, you can argue, you know, Carrick is doing well. You know, I never thought that we would be third. You know, it looks like Champions League is on. You know, from the financials, we announced a 33 million pounds, you know, gain. But then when you start to look at this and you start to tear it down and you go, well, actually, the last 4 games, Paul Scholes is right. I don't agree with the way that Paul Scholes actually conveyed it in a certain way. I don't agree that we've played shit, but I do agree that there has been a problem and we've not played particularly well. Whether Carrick can turn that around or not, and we can discuss that, because I do want to talk about that, whether Carrick can turn this around, and I really hope that he can. So, you know, Carrick, when you look at him, has he done a good job? Yes. But from a tactical perspective, are there issues? Yes. You look at the team, you know, people are talking about how this, you know, look how these players are doing well. Well, if you look at it with comparison, are they really? You know, we are 1 injury away from this season capitulating. If we lose a Mainu, you know, I don't think Kobe Mainu's been particularly fantastic. Casemiro, you know, Ugarte. If Casemiro gets, if Casemiro is out and Ugarte has to step in here, it is going to be horrific. And Malacia, if Malacia has to play more games, I am so concerned. So, you know, look, so we are papering these cracks, and then if you look underneath the veil, you know, we are saddled with debt. The Champions League cash, look, it'll be good, but we owe 700 million plus that we need to try to restructure. The debt repayments for those are going to be high. You know, how do we fund a transfer window? And that's my question. Like, my question is, you know, how much do you think that we're going to spend? So my question really tonight is, how much money do you think that we're going to spend? Because that seems to be the topic of the conversation. So look, let's take into account they're going to increase the prices for the tickets. So let's just say they're saying that it's 5%. Let's just say, I would probably say it's going to be more towards 8 to 10. Rashford, probably he's going to leave. His wages are going to be, you know, I would love to know from you guys how much you think we're going to spend. And then I've got a second question up there as well. So look, you know, we are paper thin. So, and this goes back to this fan base as well, you know. And look, again, I'm not blaming the fans, but we are in such a, on the surface, it does look good, but we are at war. This fan base is at war. Any single thing that we do, there is not a single item or problem that we can agree to. You know, you've got a top red, you know, you've got all sorts of stuff. So it is just one big spaghetti mess tonight. But look, let me know in the chats what you think about the season tickets. Do you think that it's a good thing because we need to raise cash? Do you think the Glazers are right for doing it? Do you think that why the fuck are we moaning? Because it's only 5 to 8%. Do you think the match? Considering we've got the Champions League, hopefully next season, should they be paying more? I want to know about your comments, but I think one of the things I want to know tonight is how much money do you think we'll spend tonight? Our pass-through performances has Carrick effect worn off like links, says Simon. Let's have a look. How many United shirts do you have? I've probably got about 15 to 20, I think. Old Trafford is no different than Chernobyl, just covering up one big mess. You played Wednesday, we played Tuesday. We managed to sweep beside the Wolves easy tonight. Tuesday was the important game. Man's talking about icebergs. Look, you got to talk about some icebergs, man. The fans' key concerns are performances of the team itself and the efforts. I like the iceberg point. Thank you. Thank you. Somebody likes the iceberg point. We beat Villa, then surely we'll see the Champions League. Will it take another victory? I think if we beat Villa, I think it shows that look, at the moment, I've accused Carrick. Not accused, but I'm of the opinion that Carrick doesn't have the tactical awareness that I think he needs. But I've also caveated that with does he have the players? Now, one thing that I really liked, and I have to say this, one thing whereby I didn't think that he had the tactical nous, which I don't think he does, is that after the match, if you watch what he did after the match, he blanked these players and went straight over to those fans. I like that. I like that. I'm not saying let's give Carrick the job now. I'm not suggesting that at all. What I am saying is that I would be remiss and I would be hypocritical if I didn't say this. Look, how can Carrick be properly judged if he doesn't have the players, right? If United decides that he is the guy, right, then you've got to give him players. So the problem for me yet again will be if Carrick gets this job, you've got to give Carrick a team. Otherwise, what is the point? There is no look. Those people tonight who are Carrick fans, right? There are also people tonight who like these players, right? They love these players. They don't blame the players, never blame the players, but they like the coach, right? So for those people who like Carrick and want to give him the job, but also like the players. Now, there's people like me who say that I blame the players. I think the players, they are light switch FC players. What you saw after that game is you saw your coach, the guy that you want to give the job to, blank these players. You saw the coach that a lot of people now want, the coach that apparently gets this club, the coach that is doing an Ollie part to it, and I don't mean that in a negative way. So you've got a coach who people want, who is doing a good job. And yet after that match, if you'd have watched him in that match, and if you go back and you look at some of the clips, the guy is pissed off with these players. And if you look after the match, he blanks these players. He blanks these players and he goes off to the fans, as he should. And that indicates to me that he knows what these players are. And I actually, for me, that is a big tick. That is a big tick, because one of the things that I said, or one of the things that I believed, was that one of Amorim's faults, amongst many faults, was he didn't have the ability, or too stubborn, to play these players at their own game. I always said, and I kind of one of the things that I always thought was if you put these players in their positions and you show the world, look, these are the players, they're going to play in their positions. I'm going to let you play in your positions, and then at the end of the season, I'm going to piss you all off, right? Now, the problem with that is that Amrin didn't do that. The players, they down tools, and Amrin left. Amrin got sacked. He walked. So the players get away with it again. Now, have the players been playing okay? The Carrick effect, the new guys come in, and you can see there the Carrick effect has worn off, and you can see Carrick. You can see it. You can just see it, and this is a plus for me. And look, I am looking for pluses. You can see it. You can see it. You can see that this manager knows that whether or not tactically I think he's there now, you can see that he knows what these players are. So tonight, the players that people love, the players, those people that said that Amrin was at fault, which he was. The players are not at fault. Amrin was awful. Amrin was bad. These players have gone back to playing that sort of football. And now the manager that people want to give the contract to now, is blanking his own players. And you can see how pissed off he is tonight. So, look, you can see it. You can see it. I will have this debate. I will stand on this hill. I'll die on this hill. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who you get into the squad. Carrick will get into the squad unless you give Carrick these players. Carrick will never show who he really is, and these players will sack another manager. If Carrick has to deal with these players for another season, these players will do this again, 100%. Nick JB reminds me of a scientist from Independence Day when you're talking about the iceberg. Thanks, mate. Carrick will get found out as soon as he signs a 5-year contract. Goldbridge numbers up again. Very good luck to him. Good luck to him. Conversely, my numbers are down. Look, it is what it is. I really don't know what you want me to do about it. I really don't care. What lessons do you think we failed to learn from? What lessons do you think we failed to learn from Jurassic Park? Jesus, that is a very, very good question. What lessons do I think that we failed to learn from that film? Not to piss around with genes. You don't want to mess around with the gene pool. I don't know, mate. That's such a random question. Such a random question. I love it. I can't think of anything smart to say, mate. I can't think of anything smart to say. I can't think of it. I can't. It says, don't squeal and shine a torch in a dinosaur, then try to hide. Well, or don't run into a shitter that's made of like straw when there's a big T-Rex outside. I read about our defeat in the paper from the BBC. I couldn't believe he put Ugarte on the pitch in Malacia. I mean, Malacia. Let's talk about fucking Malacia. And again, this is why I've got respect for a Carrick. Look, Carrick, to me, I still think Carrick has to be judged correctly on the fact that Carrick is vying for this job, right? So, we can't give Carrick a job on the basis that he used to play for us, right? Carrick has to earn it, right? You can argue that Ollie earned it, right? So for me, Carrick has to earn the right. But how is Carrick supposed to have a fair crack of the whip? Look, and I'll be fair here. and I've got to play the both sides on this, right? As much as I'm still not convinced, I wouldn't give him the job now. I wouldn't give him the job at this point. But how is he supposed to have a fair crack of the whip when he has to use Ugarte and Malacia? This club should have signed a midfielder for him. If they were serious about the Champions League, I honestly believe this is that this club wrote this season off. I think it's out of sheer luck. I think it's out of sheer timing. It could be the Carrick effect. It is out of sheer luck, not planning, not intelligence. It is out of sheer fucking luck that this club has gone on the run that it has, because there is no way that anybody could have predicted this run. I'll call you a liar. If any of you say to me now that after the December that we had, after the season that we had, if anybody would tell me now that they predicted that, I will call you a liar. And I mean that in the most respectful way. There is no way. And after Amorim got sacked, this club wrote this season off. This club will have you believe that this was the plan the whole season. It wasn't. It wasn't. I said at the very start of this season, we are planning this season on luck and hope. You know, Liverpool went out and said, look, we are going to try to win the league. They've just had a shit season. They've had a shit season. I don't think they've necessarily bought the wrong players. I just think they've just had a shit year. They've bought a bunch of players. They've got a bunch of players that are getting older, and it takes time to gel. We basically came into the season on hope and luck, and we've got it. We've got it. So the fact that Carrick has to use an Ugarte and a Malacia is, I feel sorry for Carrick. I feel sorry for Carrick. Now, I'm already looking ahead to next season, and I already feel for Carrick. Already feel it. Turn the light off. Glazers 250 million. Those subs were questionable on so many levels. We need to sell Sancho for a few quid too. Sancho's gone. Sancho is going on a free. We're not going to sell him. Sancho is going on a free. Sancho is gone. Bringing Ugarte on, I understand. Bringing the Malacia is prison sentence. How much are you going to spend? My guess is 120 to 200. How much do you have to spend? Zero. The money you spend only makes the most on it even bigger to drag you down. And yep, I think United fans are perplexed about how the club is preparing for the future. Yes, we have ended with a paper-thin squad where we cannot afford any injury now. Will you have we'll have YouTube soon? And look, mate, if you do, please come to this channel. Carrick is boring. I need some spice in my life, says Grace. Carry on, Carrick. I don't understand this new thing of supporting the players over the team, and I agree with you. It was at St James Park. Wasn't he shouting at Cunha to get back and help the fullback? Who is Amorim? I love it. Spot on about Carrick. He's been given a role to the end of the season, but he hasn't got the players. Do we play Villa? Yes, we do. Amorim is my daddy. Okay. No one needs to die, John. Come on. Amorim brought handsomeness to the league. Now they've rotten or old. It's great. It's great to finally be here. Henderson, the legend. Striptease will get the numbers up. Well, look, I will have to talk to my brother. He's always tells me he's taken to the match like the day. He doesn't give me much notice. Spurs are where they should be. No improvement from last season. Don't run and hide in the shitter. I forgot about that scene exactly. Do you feel United will be in a better position in a year's time? What about? And look, do I think they'll be in a better position? If we're talking financially, no. I don't. I think the financial issues are going to rumble on for many, many years. I just look, if we had a more competent football side, we should be able to change the strategy. So let me give you an example, and I will come back on the reason why I kind of asked how much money that you know that I think that will spend. Is that what we should be in a position now whereby we can add to the squad, right? So we can add in maybe one or two world-class players because we do need those. We then add in, a few good squad players, right? A year or two ago, we were led to believe that this club was buying the youth. We were buying youth. We were bringing in two or three players, right? Now, for me, it depends on, and the reason why I mention it is because when we're talking about do I feel we'll be in a better position in a year or two's time, I think we need to look at it from a financial position and B from a player's position. So next year, for me to think from a squad position, are we going to be in a better position in terms of a squad? Then what I want to see is I want to see a bigger squad. I want to see midfielders added in. I also don't just want to see we've bought these players in. I want to see them bringing through the youth players like they promised, bringing through the youth players like they should do. I think we need a mix of experience and youth. So from a squad position, do I think in terms of a squad position, I want to see a Lacey come into this squad. I want to see a Kone come into the squad. I want to see an Orozco come into the squad. I want to see an Amas come in. Now, I don't want to see them in this team if they're going to be thrust in. They need to be protected. They need to come in. So do I think our squad in a year's time is going to be better? My answer to that would be I think it will be. I think it will be improved? I don't know. My worry is for this squad to be improved for next season, and let's look at it, right? So we've got Shesko, who's going to stay. We've got the two lads that we brought in from the summer. So we've got our, Cunha. For me though, with Cunha, there is a question mark on Cunha, and I'll tell you why there's a question mark, because we are seriously looking for a winger. At the moment, Mbeumo and Cunha are the sorts of wide 10 players, right? Are we going next season, if we bring in a left-sided player, and look, we do need the squad depth in this team, where's Cunha going to play? If Bruno Fernandes stays, where's Cunha going to play? So are we going to bring in another player? Yes, I think we are. We need to bring in some midfield players. So look, we can strengthen from a personnel. But then if you look at the people that we're going to lose, we're going to lose a Casemiro. And look, the players that I'm going to mention now doesn't necessarily mean I think they're good or bad. I'm just going to give you a list of players that are going to leave. We're going to have a Højlund leave. Casemiro is going to leave. Sancho is going to leave. Rashford he'll leave. Malacia, right? Now those are 5 players that are going to leave. We need to replace those players. I understand that some of those players aren't here. We still need a replacement for a Rashford. I would rather a Rashford sat on that bench. We need to replace those players. We need to replace them. We needed an additional centre midfielder in this window. So when Casemiro leaves, that leaves us with Ugarte, Kobe Mainu, So for us to go into the Champions League, we're going to need, even if Ugarte is still here, we're going to need at least two. You could argue three. We're going to need to replace a Rashford. You can probably argue that we're going to need, you could argue two. Obviously, Ahmad is still there as well. We're going to need a left back, a right back, I think. You could use maybe Cunha as a striker. We're probably going to need another striker. So in terms of a squad, are we going to be in a better position in a year's time? I think we could be. I think the status quo could be the same, because I don't think we're going to be able to afford the numbers. And then in 2 years' time, I think it will depend on whether we get back into the Champions League. So financially, for us to even make a dent into any debt that we've got, and to make sure that we keep on adding to the squad, we've got to make sure that we get into the Champions League. So do I from this position, knowing this club, think that we'll be in a better position in 2 years' time? My truthful answer is no, I don't think we will. I think we'll still be in a similar position. I still think that we'll go from Champions League to not, to in, to out. Hopefully we're not going to have another 15th. But I think that if we don't learn the lessons from Spurs this season, I think we could be, I'm not saying we're going to be in a similar position, but we might not be too far away. So I think that I from this point, I would say that I think we're either going to be exactly the same in 2 years' time, because I don't think under these owners, I don't think we're going to improve. I don't. With hindsight, would you change how we spend on new players, and should we have put so much pressure or emphasis on a Shesko, which now seems like a huge gamble? Would you change how we spent on players? Yes. Do you mean this season or the previous seasons? In the previous seasons, yes. The reason why we spent poorly in the previous season is because we had dickheads in charge. We had absolute fucking idiots in charge. Now look, last season, I understand why they got the players that they did. I still think last season was incompetent, because what I think this club thought was going to happen is you couldn't go and get the two best players in this league. So what they did was they said, can we go and get the next two best players? And I honestly believe this, that the Wilcox mindset was, if we go and get the third and the fourth best player in this league in terms of the numbers, and we add those two numbers together, that's what we're going to get next season. I think it was as fucking simple as that. I don't think. Look, I like those two players. I think we could have not got one of those, and I think we should have got a centre midfielder instead. Now, which one of Mbumo or Cunha would you have sacrificed? I would probably sacrifice Cunha. I love Cunha. I think he's brilliant. But I just think that position, I think I would rather a midfield player rather than, and I'm saying rather than a Cunha, but I would much have preferred a centre midfielder rather than get those two number 10s. But that's me. JB and Nicarucci do a striptease live. Jesus Christ. I think I'd get arrested. Bruno's contract will be discussed after the World Cup, so I wonder which manager and Simon. I people don't agree with me on this. I think the fact that Bruno's contract is being discussed after the World Cup is fucking disgusting. I know people like him, but I'm in total disagreement that Bruno Fernandes decides when he talks about his contract. I know there's player power, but Bruno Fernandes should not be holding his club to fucking ransom. I know he's probably our best player. I could try to argue that, but there would be no point. Bruno Fernandes, I know people think the sun shines out of his arsehole. I do not believe, I don't care. Bruno Fernandes should not decide when he signs a contract. This is a high-end business club. In no walk of life do your employees decide when they sign a contract. And what I mean is that if you sign a contract and your contract is up and you want them to sign a new deal, like I've worked in places whereby I work on a contract for 6 months. We get to the end of the contract and they say to me whether we want you for 6 months more. Do you want to sign a contract or not? If you don't, then go. And that's why it should be. We cannot be at the behest of Bruno Fernandes, because we will need to replace him as well. And that's the problem. Is if this wasn't a World Cup year, then maybe I'd still be annoyed at it. But Bruno Fernandes cannot dictate the situation in this club. There is no way Fergie would have allowed this to happen. He would have gone to him and said, "Are you going to sign a contract?" "Sorry, boss, I'm going to wait until after the World Cup." "No, you're fucking not. You either tell me you're going to sign now or piss off, because this club has to play." Why are we so? "Oh, Bruno Fernandes. Oh, it's okay, Bruno. It's okay, Bruno. You can go to the World Cup, even though we need to sign players, even though we don't know like who's out there. Yes, Bruno. It's okay. You come back to us when you're ready, Bruno. You come back to us. Never mind, we're a multi-billion-pound club with we're a billion fans. No, Bruno. We're going to wait for you, Bruno, because you're the best thing ever. Bruno Fernandes, we're going to wait for you to sign the contract." Of course, we will wait for you until after the World Cup. It's not as if we've got to go and sign fucking 2 midfielders anyway. We may have to go and sign 3, but don't worry, Bruno. No, you can take your fucking time, even though we pay you 300k a week and you've been shit for most of the season. No, Bruno, it's okay. But no. Carrick is the pundit's choice, and he's a fan choice because he's played for us. Grace says, "Get out!" Or severely plummet up on the offence list because there's a young viewer that's watching this channel. Carrick bows down to the players. I think if Dallo asked to play a striker, he would do it, says Ray. Sheer luck. Is that Sherlock Holmes' brother? I like that. Up the Chelsea, says Beans and Cheese. I was fine with Sheshka's signing, but in Boom song was weird. True about not. We're not going to get a player in the January window. Mbeumo is our next captain. As in the Bon Jovi song, "We've been living on a prayer." If Amarin, then I would quote, "Go into the road to nowhere." I like that. Why is Mbeumo always caked up? United has never been blue. You didn't exist until 2012. Grace, you cracked me up. If we did have a competent side, then I will be a very old man. I am. Have you noticed Casemiro's shiner who hit him? Well, Simon, I can only hope that it was a fight. Are the biggest problems going to be replacing Bruno and Casemiro? This must be. So look, I'm gonna give you my take. Right? Do I think it's going to be difficult to replace Casemiro, Simon? So Milton, my answer to that with Casemiro, I think is an easy answer for me, and my answer to that is no, because the reason is because we are not replacing prime Casemiro. If you ask me, Milton, if we were trying to replace Casemiro at 26, I would say to you, we're never going to replace him. We got downgraded Casemiro. The reason why Casemiro in this squad looks good is because we've got nobody else. And I'll have this debate with anybody. Casemiro this season is having a better season, right? Would Casemiro walk into any top 2 or 3 side, and I'm not classing us as 3 for a second, I'm talking about, let's go to the top 2 or 3, right? And yes, I know we're third, but let's just ignore that. If you went to Italy, if you went to the Bundesliga, if you went to Spain, if you went to any top league in this world, would Casemiro get into a midfield starting every single week? No. Casemiro, for me, is having a decent season. But by comparison, the reason why Casemiro looks good is because by comparison, everyone else is shit. It literally is a bit like, it's a bit like me going to play for the over 65s up front, and I would look like a good player, right? I am waiting for the the abuse on that, but it's the point is, if you put somebody who's good in a mediocre side, by comparison they're gonna look fantastic. I guarantee you, if you went and got Morgan Gibbs White, or you've got a Neves, and you put those two in the midfield, by comparison, Casemiro would look shit again. So I don't think it's going to be difficult at all. You can't replace Casemiro's. You can't replace his brain. You can't replace. If you look at the goals he scored, you can't replace his brain. His brain is really, really good. But physicality-wise, it's not going to be difficult. So I don't think Casemiro is going to be a difficult one to replace. Bruno Fernandes. Look, I don't want to replace Bruno Fernandes. I want a different style of team. I don't want to be a one-man team. Bruno Fernandes, for me, should represent the old club. I'm not saying because I don't think he's a fantastic player. I'm not saying because I dislike the player. I want to go down a different route. The definition of insanity is to do the same thing again and again. It doesn't matter how many sides you build, how many plays that you get in. It doesn't matter how many assists he provides. It doesn't matter how many goals he scores. The outcome is the same. I want to do something else. So for me, can you replace a Bruno? No, you can't. You can't. You can't. I don't want to replace him. I want to do something different. I want a team that doesn't revolve around a player. I don't want a captain who is pedantic. I don't want a captain who chucks his hands in the air, who has a tantrum. I think I would move away. And look, I fully accept I am probably, there are not many people that agree with me. But I think too many people are shitting their pants that Bruno Fernandes could leave. We've had better players than him leave. We've had far superior, better players. For me, Bruno Fernandes, I'd struggle. I'd struggle to put him into the top 20 United players of all time. I would struggle. I think Bruno Fernandes in this era has been an important player, but I think we need a new era. We need new players. We need new heroes. And I think Bruno Fernandes has had his time. He's had his place, and I think it's time to move on. I do. Henson says we're not going to be in the conversation for the league next year. We've got to get to the knockouts if we're in it. Yeah, I agree. I think next season, anybody talking about winning a league next season, I think is crazy. I think is absolute crazy talk, because we are not. We don't have the knowledge. We don't have the players. Look, how can you win a league when you don't know how to win a league? Which sounds insane, but this is why you get players who have won stuff. The reason why you need winners in your side is because winners teach other winners. So the reason why I don't believe that we can win a league next year without luck is because we don't have winners. We don't have players who know how to win things. So until we get those sorts of players, we can make waves and we can start to try to win things. But I think we need to consolidate. I fully agree, and I will say this is that every season I believe that we need to win a league. We need to win the league. We need to be in the Champions League, but that's not going to happen, right? So what we've got to do is we've got to consolidate. So I think, Henderson, I think you're right. I think what we've got to do, what we've got to do is not run before we can walk. We're not winning a league next season. It doesn't mean you can't have a little try, but let's focus on third. Let's focus on fourth. Let's focus on getting through to the last 16 of the Champions League. Let's focus on beating fucking Grimsby. Let's focus on going further in the FA Cup. The focus should be let's improve. Let's improve. Not we're going to win a league. We're going to win the Champions League. We're back. We're not back. We're not back. If we can have incremental improvements season on season whilst improving the squad, whilst improving the mentality and actually keeping a coach, then I think this has to be a process over at least the next 5 years. Sell or raffle off Ugasi to start for a kids team. I don't even think I'd put him in a kids team, mate. Sky says we're not good enough for the Champions League. Are we going to cling on to Maguire or Shaw? Simon, I think we're clinging on to them both, mate. Simon, it wouldn't surprise me, Simon, if Luke Shaw gets a new contract. I think they would give Luke Shaw a new contract. I do. I think they'll give him an extension. I do. I think they'll wait for Luke Shaw's contract to run to an end, and then I think Luke Shaw will be Harry Maguire from this season. I think Harry Maguire is going to get a new contract on reduced terms, and I think that Luke Shaw will next season get a contract on reduced terms. I also think Xerxes will go. I don't think that he'll stay. I think he'll go next season. And will Bruno be here after the World Cup? Milton, if we get to the Champions League, I think he will. I think this club will beg him to stay. I do. I think this club will beg him to stay, and I think it will entirely depend. We are entirely dependent on what Bruno Fernandes wants to do. It is simple as that. We are entirely dependent on what Bruno Fernandes picks. We're not dependent on what we want to do as a club. We're not dependent on what we want to do, what we want to plan, where we want to go. We are planning our future around Bruno. That I think is the Wilcox United fucking master plan, is to plan their future around a player who's 32 years old, who's not getting better. He's going to get worse. So I think that is our plan. Do I think he will still be here? I think if it's up to this club, yes, but Bruno Fernandes will decide, and it's typical. I think this contract sums him up completely. Bruno doesn't know. Bruno just doesn't know if he's going to stay yet or not. Bruno needs to decide. Bruno needs his time. Bruno needs to think about it. It outside it might be a rainy day and Bruno Fernandes needs to think about it. He might need to brush his hair. Something might annoy him. It needs to be perfect. And Bruno Fernandes just needs time to sign that contract. So do I think he'll be here? I think he will do, and I think they will increase his wage as well. I do. I think he'll be on 350 to 400k. Look, we're saying, look. World Cup is June. World Cup is July, end of June, July, I think it is. Guys talking about that. You guys, yeah, you guys are on your. JB would make a good mascot over 65 game. Thanks, mate. I would put Ugarte and Malacia at Spurs, guaranteed to get relegated. Spurs don't need Ugarte for that, mate. Spurs are going down all by themselves. Nick Russo says, JB and the wonderful people of the channel, I've got to go to bed. Look, mate, have a good one, buddy, and we'll see you soon. Malacia is god awful. I forgot he was still even at the club, and Ugarte, I have no words for. I think the way forward is to get different players from Casemiro and Bruno. Time to move on. And Milton, I mean, look, that is where I'm at on it. You know, I want a different captain. I want a different captain. I want different players. I want different players. I want a squad. If you could choose two midfielders to bring in, who would I choose? So look, who would I choose? Look, I would go for Tonali. I like Tonali. I like Tonali a lot. Wharton, I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I don't know, because I would, and this is the problem that I've got, right? Is that the two type of midfielders that I would bring in would mean that Bruno Fernandes or Kobe Mainoo don't fit into the same squad, because I don't think Kobe Mainoo is an 8. I want two centre midfielders who will run all day long. I want one centre midfielder who is a bit more defensive, not necessarily a number 6, but somebody who has that defensive part of his game, but a ball carrier, a ball winner, and a good passer. I also want a number 8 who look. I want my 6s and 8s to rotate sometimes. So when one goes up, not necessarily box to box, but I want two centre midfielders who win that ball. One can be more defensive, but I want an Anderson type. Am I convinced on Anderson? If I was to pick two, I would probably go for those two. I'd probably go for an Anderson and a Tonali. I would go for those two. I'm not adverse to a Morgan Gibbs-White. So Gomez from Wolves. And look, don't forget, we need squad players as well. But the type of players that I would bring in, I would argue how I would set up the midfield in a midfield 3 is I would have those two sorts of players like Tonali and Elliott there, and then I'd probably have Kobe Mainoo. So then what that then means is that, well, Bruno Fernandes, where does he go? Or if I bring in those two, I would want Bruno Fernandes to sit there. I'd want him to be the free role, and I want him to sit. I think we need 3. I think we need 3 in the midfield. Whether or not you've got 2 static number 6s and 8s, and then you have like a hybrid 8, or or you have 2 static centre midfielders who can actually run, and then you have Bruno Fernandes. But I think we need a midfield 3, or I think we need a hybrid of a midfield 3. So I think we do need to play a 4-3-3. I don't enjoy this Bruno Cunha's not a wide player in my view. So if I was to bring in the midfielders that I would want, you have to sacrifice either Bruno Fernandes or Kobe Mainoo. I think the last few performances have shown that we're not back. Stephanie is in the house and says Elliot Anderson and Aidan Hackney. For me, yes, I like Hackney as well. Two box to box. Yeah. Now, the problem I think that we've got in this midfield is we've got a defensive midfielder in a Casemiro who used to be or box to box, always or wants to be one, but he can't do that. Casemiro needs to sit in front of a back four. Red says, hi, I love the shirt, mate. Thank you. I do. I love the shirt as well. Absolute fantastic shirt. This is an amazing shirt. And we've got a Mainoo who's not really a defensive box-to-box player. And I agree with you. I think what I want to see is I want to see two box-to-box. They don't necessarily have to be proper box-to-box in terms of, you could have a number 6 that plays from his box, probably just in front of the D, and then you've got the other one that plays from inside the box all the way back just before the D. But we need those midfield engines, which we don't have. But look, I agree with you. I want two hard-working, good passers. They have to be able to run, pass, tackle, and then any attributes else that they bring into that, I'm going to be tough bringing. It's going to be tough bringing in the right players. However, no option to doing this. But look, and one of the things that I did ask was that, how much do you think we're going to spend on players, right? So, even if we spend 100 million, even if we spend 200 million, 340 million, the next question is, how do we fund it? The next question is, how do we fund it? Now, look, it's very common, for teams to, pay contracts over 5 years, right? The problem that we've got is restructuring, right? So even if we wanted to spend 400 million, we can spend that. And the reason why we can spend it is because debt doesn't impact what we can spend. Okay, so on paper, you will be told, and I can tell you because I've done the math, we could, given the right circumstances, you could spend up to 400 million. Fine. But how do you pay for that? Now, we've got 780 million due to pay within a year. Now, look, you can restructure that. Some of that is payment due. The only things that we've got to use to pay out is the credit card. The credit card was maxed out. I think we've got about 200 left on the credit card. That's it. If we spend 200 million and we don't clear a big chunk off of it, we're going to be maxed out. We're going to be maxed. So let's just say, for example, we lump another 200 million on there and we only pay, and then that pushes the max up to 400 million. Some of that needs to be paid off. How are we going to pay that off? How are we going to bring in players? We could take a gamble this season, and yeah, you can lump another 200 on to that. But next season, somebody will have to pay the piper. We will have to then pay. So whatever we pay off the credit card for next season or for this season is what we can spend. So this is why this season, unless we sell players, and even then, if we do sell players, we're going to have to be careful about the wages. It is going to be the wage that is going to impact this season. So when we're thinking about the transfers, and then when you're out there listening to the content and people telling you that we're going to be spending X amount of money, my question to them is always going to be how. Explain to me, because I've created a model that I can use that can tell you exactly how much that we can spend based on the circumstances. My question to those people who are going to create the content, who are going to tell you that you're going to sign an Anderson, etc. My first question is always going to be, yes, I know I've done the math that we can technically spend the money, but where does the money come from? How do we spend that money? And that is the pertinent point here. It's not can we spend the money? How do we spend the money? Where does that money come from? Because it doesn't matter if you could spend £1 billion, but where does it come from? How do you physically go and get that money? United have been informed that Trabzonspor are not willing to pay the clubs 40 to 30 million for Onana. And Simon, look, I think we reported this. Onana's coming back, mate. Onana is coming back. He is not. Like, they're never going to pay that amount of money for him. Jack says, "I love the shirt. Thanks, buddy. This is an absolute. I love this shirt. Absolute quality shirt. And I mean, I love the sleeves in it as well. This fantastic shirt, buddy. Absolute amazing shirt. Simon, look, no one's paying that for him. No one in a month for Sundays is going to pay that for him. And this is another problem as well. That, as we are talking about spending money, right? It's not just about spending. It's about trying to sell players, right? So let's talk about those two players, right? So you've got Onana and Mason Mount, right? When people, and I've seen this from creators as well, saying that we're gonna sell 10 players, we're gonna sell 10 and buy 10, right? I guarantee you that you will hear that, right? Bollocks, right? Because this club cannot make a loss on any players. So, for example, Onana's contract, I still think when you're talking about the amortized amount, I think you've still got to pay. I think somebody will have to pay 30 million, 30 million pounds. No one's paying that for him. So Onana will go out on loan again. And guess what? This is the absolute kicker. This is the kicker. Is that even if Onana goes and plays for another club, which he will do, he will get 25% increase in his wages if United qualify for the Champions League. I just want you to let that sink in. How bad this club has been at deals is that if Onana, which he's not going to be at this club next season, or if he does, he's going to be sat on the bench, but he's not going to be at this club. He will get 25% increase in his wage. Onana, or the season before he went, I think it was last season, right? Because players had to take a reduction of 25% in the season after, he fucked up. So when he basically single-handedly, in my opinion, was one of the reasons why we were no longer in the Champions League. He demanded a 25% increase in his wage because of the money that he lost. He's not going to force a move. Onana's not going to force a move. He knows, and this is why players in this club don't force a move, because they're going to know this season that they're going to get a 25% increase in their wage for next season. So Onana, look, My worry, Simon, is that Larmans gets injured and Onana is still here. I would rather be in in goal. I don't want either of those players, but Onana for me. If Onana is our number 2 next season, and bearing in mind, we're going to be fighting for a league, we're going to be playing in the Champions League, we're going to be in the FA Cup. Larman's realistically, at some point, is going to stretch something, right? Do you want Onana as a number 2? I'd rather put in Ugarte in goal. I think that's how bad Onana is. I would rather put Ugarte in goal. So look, I think Onana will come back, but I don't think he'll stay. Bienda, I think he'll go. I do. I think he will go. And I think he'll go at a ridiculously cheap price as well. So I do think he'll go. Onana, the club's biggest nightmare. To go back to your comment before, I actually think it's Mason Mount. Mason Mount. Look, I like the player. Mason Mount, I really like him. I think he's a very, very likable player. Again, look, he's a millionaire, right? Now, I don't blame him. I don't blame him at all. I blame the club. I blame whoever fucking signed that deal, because he had a problem before he came to the club, and whoever signed that deal should be shot. With Mason Mount, they gave him the number 7 shirt. Look, Mason Mount, this club has even come to a point where they now lie, right? But they can't even be bothered to come up with a lie every week, right? Every week it's now, he's going to be back next week. He's on the grass. He's on the grass. I mean, is he smoking the stuff, or they can't even be bothered now to tell you an update, right? So Mason Mount, and look, I'm not blaming Mason Mount. Nobody made him sign the contract, but this is what I mean about these players. He's getting paid what, £250,000. He's going to get a 25% increase in his wage. Mason Mount was supposed to be back in January. It's now March. Mason Mount. If we could claim on an insurance for Mason Mount, I would do it, because I just don't think that he can be dependable. Like Mason Mount, to me, unless that he can go and rehabilitate and get the injury fixed, it is pointless. But the reason why United will keep on pushing it is because they know they fucked up. So Mount, can we get, so will De Gea come back as number 2? I don't think so. Would I take him back as number 2? Yes, I would. But I don't think he will do, mate. I look back now on it, and that's one of the worst, most disgusting decisions that we ever made. Fresh says, "Good evening, mate. Casemiro and Shaw are world class, mate. Good evening to you, buddy." That's one of the worst things that we ever did. One of the worst, most disgusting things that we've ever done to a player, a goalkeeper like that, who actually won a league, who actually was a top-notch keeper in his prime, all paid for. All we had to do was give him another contract. He would have happily have signed the contract. But instead of taking a goalkeeper who was just an absolute legend, I would, when we're talking about players that are legends, I would put him up there as one of our better goalkeepers. Obviously, you've got your Schmeichels, Van der Sar's. And I know if you're of a certain age, you've got your keepers from the 60s, the 50s, the 60s. But if you're talking about the goalkeepers that we had over the years, and then when we tried to replace Schmeichel or Van der Sar, he is up there. He's at least in my era, he's probably the third best goalkeeper. Now he was a wonderful goalkeeper, and what we did, the backstabbing, cowardly, disgusting thing that we did to him was unreal. And if I was him, I would never come back to this club again. And then the fact that we did that match, and he got a plaque and all that bollocks. I mean, fucking disgusting, absolutely vile. So yeah, just I mean, if I was the players, I would have been, I would have walked out. I just at that point, you should known what you're dealing with, because it's absolutely disgraceful. And 9 was the gift that keeps on giving. Oh mate, he's a nightmare, absolute nightmare. So look, guys, I am going to go. Look, the Friday night show is back. Look, I love these shows. We just I come in with a topic, we discuss. We talk about anything. And look, I should be back tomorrow. I won't be back during the day because, of course, there's nothing on. Because we're not in the FA Cup, because we're so crap that we fucked that up completely. So look, I will be back tomorrow at some point, probably tomorrow evening. If not, I'll definitely be back on Sunday. And look, there will be some news. There's always some news. And yeah, so look, have a good rest of your weekend. If I don't see you tomorrow, I should see you tomorrow evening. If I don't, then I will be back on Sunday. Yes, Simon, mate, legend. 40k is ridiculous. We are pushing 40k now, which is absolutely crazy. And look, guys, if and when we do hit that number, mate, it's just unreal. I never thought we'd get anywhere close to that number. So look, it is all thanks to you guys. You guys are fantastic, and look, this channel does not exist without you guys. So look, legends of the channel, I can only thank you enough. So look, I will be back tomorrow evening, Sunday as well, and then we'll crack through next week. So look, have a good rest of your morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are in the world. I'm JB. This is the United Devil channel, and I will see you guys on the next one. Take care.